Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. If you're gearing up for the Nutanix Certified Professional Multi-Cloud Infrastructure Certification, the NCP-MCI, you are in exactly the right spot. Today, we're focusing squarely on Section 7.4 of the NCP-MCI 7.5 exam, Image Management and Catalog. Just as our baseline, we're assuming you're running the Acropolis Operating System, or AOS, version 7.5, the Acropolis Hypervisor, AHV, version 11.0, and Prism Central 7.5. This explainer is built to be your ultimate study companion, really transforming that dense documentation into clear, highly testable concepts. So, get comfortable, and let's master this topic.
All right, let's just dive right into the syllabus. We're going to cover why image management matters, walk through a quick practical scenario, tackle disk and container allocation, expose some really sneaky exam traps, and then finish up with the cheat sheet of key facts.
Section 1. Why image management matters. Centralizing the chaos. Seriously, by centralizing management through Prism Central, Nutanix basically turns what used to be multi-cluster chaos into a beautifully streamlined, single pane of glass operation.
Now, to nail this exam, you absolutely have to separate these two concepts in your head, the image service and the catalog. The image service, that's your foundation. It's literally the centralized repository for your raw operating system or disk files, stuff like ISOs, which are your optical disk images, and virtual hard disk formats like QCOW2 and VHDX. The catalog, though, sits a layer above that. It's a curated service holding standardized virtual machine, or VM, snapshots and images, specifically for self-service deployments. So think of it this way. The image service is your raw materials warehouse, and the catalog, that's your polished retail storefront. Section 2. Walkthrough, images and catalogs, from theory to practice. Let's take a look at two concrete administrative scenarios that are absolutely critical for your certification. Okay, scenario 1, importing local images to your centralized management. Here are the exact steps you need to know, step by step. First up, you log into Prism Central. We'll just call it PC from here on out. Second, navigate over to the infrastructure application, go to Compute, and select Images. Third, go ahead and click Import Image. And finally, you get to select images from either all registered clusters, specific ones, or even individual images from a specific Prism element, or PE cluster. Hit Save and boom, the import kicks off.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide, and highly testable by the way, is what happens after you hit Save. On the left, pre-import, an image sits on a local Prism element cluster, and you could fully edit it right from that local PE web console. But look at the post-import state on the right. Once it's imported to Prism Central, that exact same image becomes strictly read-only on the local PE cluster. Why? Well, because Prism Central imports the metadata and completely takes over exclusive management. You literally can never update that image from the local cluster again. All updates have to be pushed directly from PC. All right, let's move to our second scenario, creating a self-service catalog item right from a VM. So when you add a VM to the catalog, it actually creates a VM snapshot. Now, step 1 here is actually a Nutanix best practice. Power off that target VM before adding it to the catalog. Next, you just select the VM, choose Add to Catalog from the Actions menu, pop in a name and description, and then, this is the fun part, select your guest customization. This is absolutely crucial for deployment at scale. You're going to use sysprep for your Windows operating systems or Cloud Init for your Linux systems.
Moving on to Section 3, Disk and Container Allocation, Provisioning the Storage. Fair warning, the mechanics of disk allocation is a really heavy focus area for certification questions. So the crucial thing here is totally grasping the difference between cloning and allocating. When you're configuring a disk for a VM and you pick Clone from Image Service, the system pulls directly from an image you've uploaded. The result? It copies the actual OS and data bits right onto the new virtual disk. Simple enough, right? But if you choose Allocate on Storage Container, the system just allocates empty storage capacity. It provides literally blank space, defined in gigabytes or gigabytes. If you go with Allocate, you're essentially just carving out an empty box. You're going to have to provide a system image later, maybe via a virtual CD-ROM, to actually make that disk bootable.
Section 4. Common exam traps. Don't get tricked. Now we're going to uncover some of those really counterintuitive edge cases the exam literally loves to test you on. All right, here is a classic exam trick. Ask yourself this. What actually happens to a catalog item if the original source VM or image is permanently deleted? Think about it for a second. If you nuke the original source, does the catalog item just break? Does it vanish? Well, this actually brilliantly illustrates the whole architecture of the catalog. The answer is there's absolutely zero impact, none.
When you add a VM or image to the catalog, a completely independent copy of that snapshot or image is created and securely stored. Because of that, if an admin accidentally or, intentionally deletes the original source back in Prism Central, the catalog item itself persists perfectly fine for all your self-service users. Okay, here is your second major exam trap, and this one deals with multi-cluster environments. You upload an image to a Prism Central instance that is managing multiple clusters. Why might you be unable to immediately create a VM from it on cluster B? This one is totally testing your knowledge of how image propagation actually behaves right after that initial upload.
Let's move to the timeline and see how this actually builds. So at minute 0, you upload the image. Within a minute, that image becomes active on just one cluster. Let's call it cluster A. But it registers as inactive on cluster B. The metadata is there, sure, but the actual bits haven't transferred yet. If you try to provision a VM on cluster B right then, the system literally has to go fetch the data. Once the admin initiates that provisioning, then the image bits copy over. It takes a little time, but eventually the state flips to active across all managed clusters. Just be super aware that the exam might try to trip you up on this inactive state, delaying immediate provisioning. Section 5. Key facts to memorize. The cheat sheet. Let's distill everything down into a rapid-fire mental flashcard summary before test day. Okay, here are your absolute non-negotiable facts. Fact 1. Port 2007 must be open for the image service to function. Fact 2. To even use these image management features, both your Prism Central and your AOS clusters have got to be running version 5.8 or later. Fact 3. Like we said earlier, once you import an image to PC, it becomes strictly read-only on the local Prism element. Fact 4. Catalog items are independent copies, meaning deleting the source doesn't break the catalog. And finally, remember that disk distinction we talked about? Allocate gives you empty gigabyte space, while clone actually copies the OS bits. Listen, if you understand the fundamental difference between raw image services and curated catalogs, and if you know exactly how to navigate those sneaky edge cases with read-only states and active versus inactive multi-cluster propagation, you are going to absolutely crush Section 7.4 of the exam. Master these mechanics, avoid those traps, and conquer the NCP-MCI 7.5. The knowledge is all yours now. So, how are you going to organize your self-service catalogs tomorrow? Thanks so much for tuning into this explainer, and best of luck on your certification journey.